Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. And now, Tider Insider TV.
All right, aloha and welcome in to another edition of Tider Insider Television. I'm Gary Harris, WVUA 23 Sports Director, sitting across the studio from Tider Insider's Rodney Orr as we continue to work at a safe social distance here in our studio. All right, let's get right to it. Mac Jones was 18 of 24 for 249 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a QBR of 95.2. Both of his touchdowns went to Jalen Waddle. The defense in the first half was really strong. And Najee Harris did his thing. He had 17 carries, 98 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Stars showed out. Devontae Smith had a nice game as well in the receiving category. 8 passes caught for 89 yards. And Alabama was up 28-3 at half over Mizzou Saturday night in Columbia. Now, we'll get to the second half in a moment. Final was 38-19. Rob, but that first half, when Alabama came out with the first teams on both sides of the ball, I thought they were pretty dominant in the game.
Yeah, there's no question about it, Gary. When you look at it, we talked about the first game under the circumstances, all the schedules that had been changed in terms of practices and how everything had been altered over the course of the last 6 months. You didn't have spring practice and all of those things. And a lot of teams that we've seen didn't come out nearly as cohesive as what we saw Alabama come out both offensively and defensively on Saturday. So I thought it was a great start in the first half.
I think we both expected, with all those playmakers on offense, even against a pretty good defense, that Alabama was going to play well in the first half of that game, and they did. Defensively, though, with Dylan Moses back and, my gosh, Christian Harris and Will Anderson, the freshman, I thought that defense, Chris Allen, the back end and the secondary, the first half, now we'll get to the second half in a moment. The first half, you see Harris there. Rodney, they got after Mizzou. I mean, they didn't give up much at all. A little over 100 yards total offense and a field goal in the first half.
Yeah, really fast, Gary. There you see Christian Harris, sophomore inside linebacker team with Dylan Moses. What a duo that is inside. Hey, how about this? Alabama had 3 starting linebackers from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Christian Harris, of course, Dylan Moses, Chris Allen on the outside. But there you saw Moses making a play, and there's the freshman Will Anderson forcing a pitch. He had a really outstanding game for his first game. So I think the speed on defense, and Gary, a lot of times we talked about this last year. Remember the inexperience they had? And we talked about, you know what? They may not play as fast as they really are because they don't know where they're supposed to be. In the first half of the game, they really were fast, and they looked like they knew where they were supposed to be.
All right, so really, let's just be honest, Rodney. The game was over at halftime. It's 28-3. Missouri under first-year head coach Eli Drinkwitz. The Tigers weren't going to come back and win the football game. It was over. Second half, Nick Saban wanted to look at a lot of different personnel. He wanted to get Bryce Young in at quarterback, Trey Sanders at running back, a couple of different offensive linemen. On defense, played a lot of different personnel. And so I wanted to put it in context because in the second half, Mizzou outscored Alabama 16-10. Now, they played it right down to the end. You had Drinkwitz doing his best, Gus Malzahn, racing down the sidelines 30 yards with 4 seconds to go to call a timeout so they could try to score on the final play, which they did. But nonetheless, Mizzou had some success on offense in particular. You had a bust on a play, a wheel route to Tyler Beatty that was a 54-yard wide-open touchdown. We saw some missed tackles that reminded us of last year. So second half, Rod, I know, again, I said it, there wasn't all the first-team players in there, but does that give you pause for concern going forward?
Well, listen, first of all, the missed tackles, there were some in the first half as well, and I think that is the one thing that really has to get cleaned up. We saw that last year quite a bit. But now, one thing you got to say is the first game, usually that's your worst tackling game. And again, the circumstances that we've been in, I think that creates a lot of issues. But, Gary, I do think in the second half, all the substitutions, the things that they did, I think that's something that I'm not going to say I was concerned about that, to be honest with you. I do think that they lost some focus. That's something that certainly you don't want to do. But, again, you shuffled some players, and especially that last drive. Now, on that long touchdown throw, obviously a true freshman was beat on that play. That's going to be valuable experience for Drew Sanders. That's something that, maybe he hadn't seen. But certainly it's a valuable learning experience for him.
So Bama wins it 38-19. But Christian Harris, that outstanding sophomore linebacker from Baton Rouge that we talked about, he understands that on defense, there's work to be done before Texas A&M comes in here on Saturday.
As a team, as a front seven, I feel like we did pretty good with communication. I think, we may have had a couple of misassignments. But, like I said, we're going to go back on that this week and look at it and try to fix it and prepare for A&M this week so we don't make as many mistakes as we did last game.
And we'll get to A&M here in just a moment, Rodney. But before we wrap this up with the defense, we went through the positive. We went through the negative, and I want to be clear. There was a lot more positive than negative in that first game, and I think this defense showed the potential to really be a good unit, a better unit than we've seen the last couple of years. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Gary. It's a good way to put it. I think potentially this is an outstanding unit. Again, we saw all the speed. We saw a lot of athletes. Again, there was some inexperience on the field. You had 2 true freshmen starting on that side of the ball. So I think potentially, yes, I think that was very encouraging.
All right, now it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama's home opener against Texas A&M will feature, of course, less people in the crowd than normal. But head coach Nick Saban says the players shouldn't rely on the atmosphere in order to perform well.
What is your DNA as a competitor? Because you can't really count on external factors like, the crowd and the noise and the band and, a lot of those things that, can appeal to your emotion when you're playing in a game. Because of the atmosphere, you can't really, count on that. And I'm sure we'll have the best atmosphere that we can have relative to the number of people that we have in Bryant-Denny Stadium. We've always had great support here, but at the same time, I don't think the players can, sort of count on that. I think it's got to come from, their DNA of who they are and how they choose to compete and create value for themselves and don't, sort of count on external factors to get you going.
Well stated as usual by Coach Saban. Alabama's Director of Athletics, Greg Burns, shared an update on the Bryant-Denny Stadium renovation project. Check out these pictures. The field looks ready for football. Saturday's home opener against A&M is scheduled for 2:30 on CBS. It is that featured SEC game of the week on the CBS network. Rodney, what do you expect the game day atmosphere to look like Saturday? We know it's going to be different with 20,000 fans instead of nearly 100. Even in the press box, it's going to be 50% capacity. The band won't be able to play at halftime. We've seen this around the country. Now we'll see it at Bryant-Denny Stadium. It's going to be a little eerie at the same time. Once you get on the field, between the lines, it's a football game, right?
Yeah, that's right. Gary, again, this is one of the most festive atmospheres, I guess you could call it, in college football. Certainly a lot of pageantry tradition here, and it's going to be real interesting to get a feel for how it is around Bryant-Denny Stadium outside prior to the game and also inside, Gary. Certainly there's going to be a lot of difference.
Well, remember, folks, we're still going to have Crimson Tide kickoff as we did last week when the team was in Missouri. It's a studio show this year, much like Tider Insider Television. We won't be out on the campus. We won't have live shots around Tuscaloosa, but we will still have CTKO Saturday morning at 11 a.m. to preview the game. Well, the Southeastern Conference announced yesterday that Alabama's game against the Ole Miss Rebels at Vaught-Hemingway Stadium on Saturday, October 10th is scheduled for a 5 p.m. Central Time kickoff on ESPN. Alabama and Ole Miss will meet for the 68th time in a series that dates back to 1894. The Crimson Tide leads the all-time series handily, 55 wins, 10 losses, 2 ties, and Alabama has won the last 4 meetings between the two schools, including last year's 59-31 victory in Tuscaloosa. Well, still to come on Tider Insider Television, Alabama basketball adds its first commit to the 2021 class, and Texas A&M struggled this past weekend against Vanderbilt. Quarterback Kellen Mond had some issues, despite being one of the most experienced QBs in the SEC. We'll break it down. And also coming up, we'll welcome your phone calls, emails, and tweets. As always, that phone number 205-348-WVUA. That's 348-9882. Email us at the address on your screen, or you can tweet at us. Make sure you use the hashtag TITV so we can find it. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide and has been doing so for 20 years. Tider Insider TV will return right after this. And we're back here on Tider Insider Television. Welcome back to the program. Still sitting across the studio from Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. It's fair to call Texas A&M's performance in its season opener against Vanderbilt underwhelming. Texas A&M wins the game. That's the bottom line, 17-12. But they lost 3 fumbles. They gave up a safety and failed to convert a 4th down late in the game that gave Vanderbilt an opportunity to get the ball back and had a chance to win the game. And Kellen Mond struggled. Did not show any of the moxie typically associated with a player in his 4th year in the program. I think patience is already starting to wear thin with Jimbo Fisher. Rodney, let's be honest. Maybe they were preparing for Alabama this whole time. I had been told by good sources in Nashville that some of the administration at Vanderbilt was hoping they wouldn't play football this year. They're on different pages up there. They didn't have as many practices as they were allotted, and they came into College Station and almost won the game. Now, A&M won, but that's a poor performance by the Aggies. There's no way to sugarcoat it.
Well, there's not, Gary. You're right. And again, I don't know if A&M was preparing for Alabama or not, but I will say this. Kellen Mond, as you mentioned, did not have a good game. He fumbled 3 times, but you know how he is. He's streaky, and when he gets hot, he can get really hot. He's had some good games against Alabama. He's a big-time runner as well as a passer when he gets to throwing the ball really well. So, we'll see how they perform on Saturday. But this is a team that's really talented, Texas A&M.
Well, they're counting on playing better, I'm sure. And you're right, Mond can be streaky, and he's played well some against Alabama in the past. But they better play better. They play like they did on Saturday in College Station, they'll get blown out of here. Yeah. So they had better play better. All right, we'll have our predictions on this game coming up at the end of the show. Well, Sunday morning, Nate Oates and Alabama men's basketball landed its first 2021 commitment in Jason Holt. Holt, a 6'6", 200-pound wing player from Roswell, Georgia. He's a 4-star player and chose Alabama over Xavier, Georgia, Wake Forest, Miami, and Washington. 24/7 Sports has Holt ranked as the number 5 player in the state of Georgia for the class of 2021. And he's a good-looking player, can really shoot it, Rodney. The recruiting success that Nate Oates enjoyed last year, they're already on campus, but you have to keep doing it, and he's off to a great start in 2021 as well.
Yeah. Gary, relentless recruiting, it looks like, by Nate Oates.
Looks a little bit like Nick Saban when he got here, doesn't it? All right, let's move on. Kindred, North Dakota junior athlete Abby Dutcher announced on Twitter on Wednesday that she's committed to play softball at the University of Alabama. Dutcher currently plays for the Midwest Bombers Acats, a travel softball team based out of Minnesota. Along with softball, she's a standout for the Kindred basketball team. In fact, she was named Gatorade Girls Basketball Player of the Year in North Dakota last season. So she's a heck of an athlete. She's 6 feet 1 inches tall. Going to be a welcome addition to Alabama softball. Well, still to come, Alabama soccer ties with Mississippi State over in Starkville last Friday night. And up next, we'll be welcoming your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information again on your screen, 205-348-9882. Go ahead and give us a call. Get through. We want to hear from Tider Insider Nation. It's football season. It's going to feel like football. It's going to be a great weekend. We'll be right back after this. Well, last Friday in Starkville, Alabama started out fast but couldn't finish off a road win at Mississippi State. Tide freshman Felicia Knox delivered the first goal of her Alabama career 5 minutes in, and Alabama held a 1-zip lead throughout until Mississippi State scored in the final seconds of regulation to tie it at 1. Neither team could score in the OT, so it's a 1-1 draw. Alabama has 1 win and 1 tie through its first 2 matches. The Tide travels to Gainesville to take on Florida this Sunday. The match is scheduled for 4 p.m. and can be seen on the SEC Network. Welcome back in to Tider Insider TV along with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. It's time to go to the phone lines, and let's talk with our pal Sammy up in Walker County. Hey there, Sammy. How are you?
Hey, Gary, Rodney. Great talk with y'all guys. Great job as always. My question would be to Gary and Rodney. I noticed Reichard was used just on field goals, of course, and extra points, and he didn't kick off. Are they going to try to save his leg wear and tear? Or that was a question, and let somebody else kick off. Thanks, guys.
All right, Sammy. First to Rodney, I want to thank Sammy. He drove all the way down here from Walker County last week to bring us a pina colada cake for 20 years of Tider Insider TV, and it was good. His sister made it. Thank both of y'all. It was outstanding. All right, yeah, that's what we saw. Allen kicked off. Reichard handled the PATs. And, Rod, I think that if that's working, Reichard did pull a muscle last year kicking off. He came in and really busted that field goal in the second half, and the kickoffs looked good. So I would imagine if it's working, Rod, that Nick Saban will stay with it.
Yeah, that's what I would expect, Gary. Chase Allen, a freshman from Texas, certainly did a good job in his first game. Will Reichard, it was really good to see him back kicking well. Gary also had a field goal in the game, so that was certainly encouraging as well.
All right, phone lines are open right now, 205-348-9882 if you want to get through. Thank you, Sammy, for that call. And again, thank you and your sister for that great pina colada cake last week. Let's get to an email here, and this is from Reggie in Tuscaloosa. Any chance the 5 p.m. Bama versus LSU kickoff time will change? My daughter is getting married at 5 p.m. that day, and Reggie sent that email in. I read it with a lot of pain because I know that's a great day. They had to get that time set, Rod, before they knew what time kickoff was going to be, and I don't think there's any chance that's going to change, Reggie, unfortunately for you and your family, because the Masters, the third round of the Masters is that day. So CBS is going to have that on until 5 o'clock and then go straight to Baton Rouge for that 5 p.m. kick. So it has a great lead-in for it. Maybe you can sneak a TV in. I don't know. But I hate that for you. I'm proud for you and your family. But, Rodney, I don't think that CBS, as much as they'd probably like to accommodate Reggie, I don't think they're going to move that kickoff for a wedding.
I think that wedding's a little bit more important for Reggie anyway.
Yeah, Reggie, you better make your daughter happy and be at that wedding and not be worried about Alabama football for a little while. All right, we're going to Alexandria. Is that right? And talk to Doug in Alexandria. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Hey, pretty good. How y'all doing?
Doing great, man.
Hey, Rodney Gary, I'm just curious why Trey Sanders you think Trey Sanders didn't have a better day Saturday? He just could not get going.
Yeah, I've talked about that a lot on my radio show. All right, I'll start out and I'll let Rodney speak for himself. I think that he missed last year with that foot injury. The last time he played a game was at IMG Academy. You probably have a little uncertainty coming off an injury. You get into a game. By that point, Missouri pretty much did it all game, but they were really selling out then against the run. They had 8-9 guys up there, tough to block them all. He was tentative. It looked like he probably wasn't sure of himself what he wanted to do, and he tiptoed around. You tiptoe around, and you're going to have 9 carries for 1 yard, which is what he had, Rod. He's got to play better. I guarantee he would tell you that he did seem to be a little bit tentative on Saturday night. That's all I can say.
Yeah, but listen, let me say this. You remember Damian Harris when he was a true freshman?
I do.
I remember TiderInsider.com blowing up because Damian was one of the top running backs coming out of high school, a lot like Trey Sanders, and same results. A lot of times when you get put into the games in those situations, it's very predictable. The defense knows what's coming. They can sell out against the run. That's what happened. Plus, Alabama had some substitutions there in the offensive line. Thought it really made it difficult for Trey Sanders. I wouldn't evaluate Trey Sanders based on that. I can tell you this. Before he injured his foot last August, he was a guy that was singled out as would make a major contribution as a true freshman. He was having a great camp. He's had some really good practices leading up to the first game. So I really wouldn't be too concerned about Trey Sanders at this point.
All right. We'll be back with more phone calls and emails right after this. Bama softball officially back up and running. The team held its first fall practice yesterday after 7 months away due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The team's 7 seniors returned from last year, and they've all returned after the NCAA announced back in March that they're granting an extra year of eligibility to spring sport players, adding 5 new freshmen this season as well. This will be one of the deepest teams in history. They're excited to be back out on the practice field. They got high hopes for 2021. Also baseball practicing as well here at the University of Alabama. And welcome back into TITV along with Rodney Orr. I'm Gary Harris. Let's get right back out to the phone lines. Rick over in Bluff Park is with us. Hey, good evening, Rick.
Fellas, appreciate you taking my call. You reckon Nick about stroked out when Riker took that hit on that placement? I sure am glad that he wasn't hurt on that one right there. Also, love the defense. They made some mistakes and everything, but it's the kind of mistakes that can be corrected, mostly in execution and just that stuff. But also, main question is what kind of relationship does Bryce Young have with Steve Sarkisian, and what are Sark's chances of staying at Alabama and trying to win a couple of national championships?
All right, Rick.
Appreciate you taking my call.
Yes, sir. Let's get to it. Yeah, they don't want to get Reichert hurt. I think it's clear that Reichert is the best place kicker on this team for field goals and extra points, Rodney. You said it earlier, the defense played fast. Yeah, there were mistakes, but they played fast. And, Rod, I'll let you get to Bryce Young. I think the bottom line is Bryce Young is at Alabama because of Steve Sarkisian. I think Steve Sarkisian's making $2.5 million. He probably could have already been gone had he wanted to. I think he definitely wants to stay here and win a national championship or two. You agree?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I think Bryce Young certainly has a great relationship with Steve Sarkisian. Steve Sarkisian's known him since he was probably in the 6th grade, and that certainly contributed to Alabama having the opportunity to flip him from USC, no question about that, along with the other things that Alabama offers. But, yeah, I think Steve Sarkisian's doing an outstanding job. He's certainly a guy that a lot of schools have taken a look at. I know Colorado was interested in him last year, Mississippi State, probably a few others. We're certainly interested in him with his head coaching experience. He was proven to be a great recruiter, both as an assistant coach and as a head coach. So there's going to to be a lot of schools that will be interested in Steve Sarkisian. How long he'll stay, I mean, who really knows? We'll see.
All right, let's get to an email real quick, Rod. Terry from Tuscaloosa, does Brian Robinson have bad hands or a lack of concentration? I don't think either. I think that he has, he dropped this ball the other night, and Lord knows it should have been a touchdown. He dropped one very similar last year. I don't think it's lack of concentration. I don't think he has bad hands. He just let the ball get into him a little bit. But he ran really hard the other night. Nobody's more upset about that than him. But Brian Robinson's a good football player, Rod.
He really is. Listen, if you remember, he had a couple of catches before that one, Gary. He had one on the sideline that they ruled him out of bounds, but it was a really nice catch. So, now I think Brian's got good hands. I think he lost focus. He might have jumped a little bit, and it might have thrown off his kind of his timing in terms of, seeing the ball in. But, yeah, Brian Robinson's now a standing player. All
right, stay tuned. We'll come back and make our score predictions on a beautiful night in Tuscaloosa right after this. Welcome back to TITV. It's prediction time for the Alabama-Texas A&M game. Rodney, you lead us off.
Well, listen, Gary, I think this game that Texas A&M had against Vanderbilt, I wouldn't give it a lot of credence right now. This is a very talented Texas A&M team. They think they might have their best defense in 20 years. So, certainly Kellen Mond will have to play a lot better. But I look at Alabama and I say, this is going to be a tough offense for Texas A&M to match up with. I think Alabama has a chance to put some points on the board. But also, I think Alabama's defense, I think they're going to make it very difficult for Kellen Mond. 31-17.
All right, I'm right there with you. I was way off last week. I picked it 58-10. Although the first half kind of went the way I thought it would. Second half, Missouri played. Give them credit, they fought and scored with 4 seconds to go. I think that A&M is still a pretty good football team. I'm with you. I don't think last week's representative of the type of team they have. Having said that, you struggle to beat Vanderbilt at home. I don't see you coming here knocking off Alabama. I think the line's right around 17. I think Bama covers it. I've got them 38-17, Rodney. I think the Tide will roll. We'll find out on Saturday. That is for sure. Well, that's going to do it for TITV. Don't forget, if you missed any of the program, you can catch a replay tonight at 10:30 after the news at 10, or online anytime at WVUA23.com. For Rodney Orr, I'm Gary Harris. We'll leave you with some NFL playmakers from Alabama. Have a good night, everybody.